Right, and to kick things off, we obviously have a little bit of a history going into this open source thing. So I would like to welcome three very special people to talk about the evolution of open source at Crate. We have Eva, our CEO, and Christian and Bernd, founders of Crate and current CTO and sales lead and president respectively. Now, if they want to, I'll let them introduce themselves a little bit more, but at this point, it's over to them to lead us through how we got to this very exciting stage at Crate. Over to you guys.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Simon, for the nice introduction. Welcome to the event. I am so happy of being able to launch CrateDB version 4.5 today. Why is this such a huge undertaking when we've had almost 400 releases over the last 7 years? Because it's actually quite a large event and a release in terms of a strategy going forward, in terms of underlying technology and where we're going as Crate, especially to the topic of open source. And I'm really happy today because this is my first official launch as CEO of Crate in terms of a product launch, a significant one. So I'm happy to join you all. And since I'm, however, fairly new to Crate, I've been CEO since last September. I'm going to give it right away to Christian, who is one of the co-founders and president of the company. And he's been with the company from day one. And he will give us his perspective. So Christian, why is this such a large launch versus yet another sub-release of the Crate database?
Yeah, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining. Happy to see you all here. We're now more than 7 years that we do Crate, and we're approaching 400 releases now soon, and that's quite astonishing number actually. And the open source background of Crate has always been there from day one, obviously. So especially in the first phase, we only had an open source product and based on the Apache 2 license, and this was up until 2018 or so, I think, when we then started to commercialize the product. And what really became on vogue at that time, I would say, and a lot of our competitors or even other open source companies in that space adopted was then an open core model. So basically you have the core under Apache 2, and then you would build enterprise features and separate it out. And those features would only be available to paying customers with the, I think, fair approach and fair idea where you say, hey, if you're an enterprise business and you have requirements on security or things like that, that are maybe not so relevant if you're let's say a smaller project, a smaller environment where you run your database, then that would be a fair approach. And in the beginning of 2019, we took it even a step further, and we created a free community edition that had all the enterprise features, but had a hard limit at 3 nodes. 3 nodes, obviously, because then you can still build a highly available cluster. But if you want to scale further, then you would have to enter a license key, and that way, basically, upgrade yourself into the enterprise world. And all the time we had the open source core on GitHub available, and I think many of our customers and users, we have won exactly through that approach. And one of our largest customers, McAfee, by the way, they even did a hackathon on our GitHub code to look in the quality of the code and just to get a sense of how we are programming and what we're doing. So this was instrumental for us going forward. The whole reason why we did that was we just had our A round done at that point. that there was a certain pressure to raise our revenues, and we thought, hey, that's a cool idea, because when you get beyond that scale, you're likely going to pay, and we did that change. And looking back now, I think that wasn't so clever, to be honest. So while we had achieved this upgrade in revenue, and we more than doubled our revenues over the years, every year, we at the same time depressed basically adoption of CrateDB in the open source world, because people were concerned, well, what happens if I reach the 3-node limit, and then I'm forced into it, we took a very hard and critical look onto that. And in the past, I would say 6 months or so, we really reflected on that, and were able to reset our thinking there, and just decided to do another evolution of our open source strategy, which means we have now merged the code base into one, and made life a lot easier for us internally, our development team, our engineers, but also for, I think, our customers, because we realized that this differentiation actually is not why they pay us. They pay us either if we deliver the service in the cloud to them, or if we deliver a support package to them and have a critical service for them, which they operate on their own, and they can trust that we are available when there is a problem. And so we decided to take this next step, resulting in CrateDB 4.5 being available fully open source now, and they're no longer separate versions. And so I think that's I'm quite happy about it. It really plays to us as a company and how we think. It's also one of our values to be open, and that's what we want to continue. And I think, Bernd, I would like to ask you, what does it really mean from a user developer's point of view, and what's changing if you are already a user? Can you go into that, please?
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for joining. Upfront, I want especially do a special thank to our team to get this license decision through, and also to implement it. There have been numerous files required, attention, not only code but especially documentation and so forth, and that upfront. You mentioned a lot, Christian, already, but how those distributions go hand in hand. So a little bit again on the technical side, up till now we had just the source code for the community edition, and we had an enterprise edition. That was actually the only package available, and we now just switched the existing edition, the distribution that we had, we changed it to open source. So that means the source code is still on GitHub as it has been. It has just been relicensed, so no change apart of the licensing there. We have done a bit of the restructuring of the modules, but that now are placed differently because they can be put together more. Than we don't have this enterprise differentiation anymore there. So we have the default distribution as you had it. So you can still, for example, run Docker run crate, and then now it runs with the 4.5. It runs open source, fully open source Apache version 2 licensed crate instance. So no 3-node limit anymore. The same functionality as the enterprise edition, as if you have put in the license. So there is also no set license, you might know it, anymore. So all those licensing things have been removed. And also this is also the same for the tarballs or the Debian packages and so forth. So this is actually now one package, and there is just a single distribution for this. Features that have been only available under the enterprise license that are now free are user management and the whole authentication. So that's for enterprises probably the biggest thing. Also the transport level security with SSL, not only on the HTTP endpoint, but especially also on the Postgres via protocol. Then we have the user-defined functions in JavaScript. Now everybody can leverage JavaScript to write functions. We have, for example, this hyperlog aggregation function that is now hyperlog distinct, aggregation function that is now available also in the open source version, and various Windows functions like the first value, lag, lead, and so forth. And one last thing, this is the Jmx Monitoring that has been under the enterprise license, providing a lot of metrics in terms of for monitoring and so forth. And yeah, that's basically it. That came in from the enterprise point of view. Additionally, with the 4.5 performance, we did performance improvements, more Postgres compatibility improvements that makes it more compatible with clients using the Postgres via protocol or expecting a Postgres server. And also for administration operations, we did, for example, you can now back up or also the settings and the metadata via snapshots, and some various new scalar functions and window functions have been added. That's basically it.
Okay, and so in terms of the Docker image, that was a question that just came in. When will that be updated as well to reflect the license changes?
Once, 4.5 is now currently on the testing channels, and when it's declared stable, we will have it on the latest tag available there. So currently we are actually building out the image currently. So the release was just pushed out. So probably if you now start Crate, you get the 4.4 release starting. So
question back to you, Eva, on the business model, and what does all of that mean for us now, and how do you see that panning out in terms of building a sustainable company, which also means we have to create revenues?
Yes, I mean, for anybody who knows Crate, you know that we're obviously a commercial company as well. We're venture funded, we're corporate funded as well, and clearly there's expectations of some kind of a hockey stick revenue growth, intangible revenues, meaning ARRs and recurring revenues. We just mentioned that 4.5 on the channels is free and completely open for the developers, and that's I think a really good move. I totally agree. Obviously, I was part of the decision making as well, and what Christian briefly mentioned it. Basically, the versions we have is this prior called Community Edition. That's the one we're talking about. That is you can download on GitHub here very shortly. And then basically use without limitations. For commercial customers, if you want the self-deployed version, or your on-prem self-deployed, then and usually the customers do want to have an SLA with us, and don't, especially since a lot of applications what they're using it with are mission critical applications. So you would always want to have that. So customers will be commercially be able to buy an enterprise SKU from us, which is that database plus a complete SLA package and support with it. That also includes, for instance, partners that want to embed the database and then self-host or host as part of their cloud platform, or ISVs that embed our database. So technology companies like analytics companies that want to embed and build on top of our database. We do have OEM and ISV contracts for that, and these are commercial contracts. What I call the hero SKU in terms of the product that we actually sell the most is our cloud offerings, where it's a fully managed SaaS offering. And today we have available on two clouds, on the Azure cloud and the AWS cloud. And both of those are commercial offerings, obviously, because it's based on consumption. And so they are both available on the marketplaces, the respective ones. And you can also do this and buy straight off our website using Stripe as a payment method, as of the last version, actually. And so there's many ways of companies to actually consume and utilize our database. I would say today, when I look at the commercial customers we have, the majority, I mean, more than 80-20 rule, use the SaaS offerings, the cloud offerings.
Okay. I mean, I think what I would like to add is that there were also a couple of other like changes in the whole ecosystem, why we arrived at that point that we think this makes most sense for not only our users and customers, but also for us. And that was that, you know, part of the differentiation in the enterprise features obviously was, for example, security and encryption as Bernd laid out, but also other things that in how things developed over the last years now are really a basic requirement for just anybody who wants to seriously run a database. And as you all know, this is not a small decision, and you're going to rely a lot on that decision. And it's not a JavaScript tool, you know, just try it out and then forget about it. It's a decision. And so we think that this will really remove some blockers to rely on Crate, and also have this whole legal coverage now that allows you to build a project that utilizes what is called now the modern data stack, where we think we are a strong part in that, and where the players in that stack above and also below us, speaking about data science tools, for example, above us, and speaking about pipelines like Kafka below us, they're all really built around this open source concept based on Apache 2 license, with varying degrees how they actually monetize, and that is also, it's just fair to talk about that, because this is how you keep this whole stuff and the whole machine running. We have 60 people in the company that expect salaries, so obviously we need to build that business at the same time. The good thing is now that with simply the fact that I would say 85% of our customers already are using our service, where we perfectly run the cloud for them, are using that, and there are thousands of clusters around the world who just run it on their own. They're self-management and self-deployed, and they don't need an SLA, and they don't need to call at 2 a.m. in the night for a question. And I think through that we could open the horizon for everybody to just pick what you want, and we're pretty excited about that.
Yep. And I mean, we, like Christian was saying, we started out as a complete open source company, then moved to open core, and now we're complete open again. And that has its benefits too. And we want to basically give back to the community, but also really engage with a much broader set of developers globally to, contribute back, be part of the community here in terms of the Crate database, add-ons, extensions, edits, things on top, besides, and underneath. And so you will see much deeper engagement around the developers and with developers in the coming months and years. And in fact, later on, we have a speaker, our head of customer engineering, where this developer engagement from our side also sits. There's going to be some leadership around that and engagement, and we're very welcome around that, and we're super eager to really gear this up and make it much larger in the future.
So, question to you, Bernd, on what does it really mean for just a developer to use Crate now, and how, what's the impact from your point of view in terms of usage and adoption? What are your expectations there?
Well, I think the big change is in you don't have to consider any licensing issues in terms of let's say for your company or other restriction you might have. So there is no legal stuff you need to take care of if you first touch Crate. I think that's a big thing also for people interested in for contributions and also just that be, let's say you want to do a stress test or something and you want to use the enterprise features. You couldn't have done that before with a lot of nodes, and you don't have to care about this anymore. So this gives you a very different view from a developer perspective and what that tool means for you. That's a big difference. I think that's basically the major point.
And in terms of, let's talk about contributions from open source developers. So I think we have about 180 signed contributor agreements. I mean, you're speaking on behalf of the core team here. I think to really work in the core of Crate, that requires a lot of experience and knowledge, and it takes a long time until you can do that. But what are typically contributions that are happening, and what are you looking forward, for example?
Yeah, I think mostly contributions could come from let's say low-hanging fruits or special requirements people have. For example, if they are power users, might need a very special aggregation function and would like to get it into the core to have it tested and everything, to get it really updated, maintained in the future. And also I think from a point of view from a developer, I think it's really special to think if you have a special license thing going on that you contribute to that. So that would be pretty much a showstopper in various cases. So if I reflect on myself in the earlier days, so we always we had the kind of special requirements from our customers to only use Apache license or MIT license, permissive licenses, if we do something. And we used in the beginning such software and also contributed to it because we knew so this would be this would last longer, and we can use it still years from now probably. And what this brings us as Crate, I think, is that we have the community, and I think the community is also strong in just using it. It's not basically just providing code to it, but it's also downloading it, using it, testing it without having the requirement of let's say a huge support contract. So they dig through it on their own. They find various points that need improvements, be it in documentation, being in translations of the documentations, be it on the documentation in the code or the code itself. So I think there are a lot of things that can be improved, and it's a very powerful, let's say, Q&A tool also, right? So if you look at this way, so if you have a lot of contributors or people using it, they improve the quality of our product. And I think this is essential, since this is a very, let's say, it's a complicated product, and it's not an easy product, let's say, to develop.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the core, I mean, if you look to other projects, it's really what you see that, let's say, the heart and the core of the team, this is actually, even in huge projects, small, you know, it's a handful of people that really carry the spirit and own this also. And then as you grow, you have more and more people that basically, if you look at it from a circle, that are on the outer ring and implement frameworks or adapt their driver ecosystem and all of that. So that's certainly something that we as a company expect to accelerate and happen even more. And so yeah, to coming to an end here now with this session, I would like to state that I'm pretty excited about all of what's going on here. I mean, what happens with data and the whole ecosystem that is evolving here around managing, handling data, making value of data and all of that. And we feel we're like in the middle of that, with a SQL engine that has structured, semi-structured support. And that's really the hot stuff from our point of view with the data explosion that you have around digital transformation, machine data, and all of that. So I'm really excited about this next phase that we're entering. It's another marker in our in our timeline. And like Bernd, I'm adding thanking the whole team to really quickly adopt after we took the decision and implement this now. And giving back to you, Eva.
Yeah, thank you so much. And what I'd like to see now that the database is fully open is thousands and thousands of users trying it out and giving us feedback. So we move it along very rapidly to the next level. And hopefully then actually with the next version, we have something new and exciting to announce again. But I'm seriously looking forward to your feedback, to your input. Now that it's fully open, you can just try it out and heavily work on it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Eva, Bernd, Christian.